Jewish males are required in many congregations, in the more traditional congregations. Backing up one second, we are a conservative synagogue, conservative, not politically conservative, but that's just the capital C for our movement. We're in the middle of the Jewish spectrum. So we're fairly traditional, but also open to change and adaptation for society and things like that, if it jives with our understanding of Jewish tradition. So in the conservative spectrum and in Orthodoxy, which is more traditional than us, more to the right, you would typically find that Jewish males are required to wear a yarmulke for prayer service, for study, for anything, for eating food, those kinds of things. So when we do it as a community, that would be our expectation. Now, individuals within our congregation have a wide range of practice, so I'm not saying that everybody in their own home is covering their heads. Probably most are not. But here, when we do things together, yes, the expectation would be when you come into the building for a class or for service or whatnot, then you put on your kippah. It's another word, yarmulke, kippah. Kippah is Hebrew, yarmulke is Yiddish, so just so you know. So we also ask then when we have non-Jewish guests in our building for some kind of ritual-related purpose, that especially when we're in the sanctuary of the sanctuary of the chapel, where we've got an ark and we keep our Torah scrolls and things like that. Then we ask them to wear a yarmulke out of respect. Not a big deal. We just started a class last week, last night, second night, that we're doing with several other local churches here in one of the bays of the social hall on the Book of Psalms. And so I have not actually made it an issue. I haven't insisted that all of our Christian guests where they're studying, or the pastors, that they wear a kippah. We're in the social hall in the sanctuary. I figured let's just sort of, it's fine. Everybody's comfortable with it going. But for if it's here for a ritual service that we're running, then yeah, we would expect, or in a sanctuary, it's the chapel. In Christianity, my understanding is we typically one would uncover their head as more of that's more often the sign of respect. But in the Jewish tradition, the sign of humility is actually to cover one's head. So, and it goes back. I would say it's we initially get exposed to this custom in maybe 1,800 years ago or so. And it started as a custom, but it's become more an accepted norm, more like law. Sometimes the difference between custom and law is very, very small. And over a period of time, custom in many cases becomes, you can't even really tell the difference. So, long-winded answer to your question.
Thank you.
Next.
So, I start. You answered the first question already. The second question is...
What was the first question?
Whether the Orthodox conservative from
Good
Shalom.
Yeah.
What is the importance of the Ark and the Torah scrolls in the synagogue?
So the Ark is just it's a home, just a place to store the scrolls. Certainly there's a long-standing tradition of having a centralized place where you can store and respect these words of sacred teaching, going back to biblical times, even in the wilderness wandering for the Israelites, when they built the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary, they had a place, they had an ark where they put the tablets of the testimony, which was basically the initial pieces of Torah, of Scripture, as we understand it. And then subsequently, in the generations that followed, when King Solomon built the first temple, likewise there was a place for the ark. Eventually the ark itself got lost. If anyone's seen the Raiders of the Lost Ark, he's certainly familiar with the modern interpretation of said tradition. But either way, as houses of worship were built, gradually the synagogue developed as an institution, which is going back now 2,000 years or so. Once we started using the Torah scroll as a means for teaching, sharing God's instruction with people, a public reading of the Torah scroll, and I'll talk to you about when we do that in a second. there had to be a place that made sense to store them. So eventually, this notion of an ark, which was very similar to, modeled after the original ark concept. And we call it in the Hebrew is Aron, so like A-R-O-N, I guess would be the best way to write it into English. And it literally translates more like closet, but we call it Aron Kodesh, which means a sanctified or sacred closet. So it has a particular name that goes with it because of what's inside it. I mean, if we took the Torahs out, it wouldn't look like very much, but once we put the Torahs in, it just imbues a different feel of sanctity to the location. The Torah scroll has the 5 books of Moses. That's what's in there, and it's hand calligraphed by a scribe who's trained to do it. It takes about a year for one scribe to write one Torah, just to give you an idea of quite the project that it is. Because you have to do it just so the letters are beautifully calligraphed. If we have a chance, once we go through questions, I can show you what it looks like. I think we have one that we don't use all the time in here because there are also some requirements as to whether it is still fit for ritual use or not. Sometimes if it falls into disuse, you have to get it repaired and